Nicholas Burns served as U.S. ambassador to China during the Biden administration and ambassador to NATO in the George W. Bush administration joins me now. Nick, it's always great to see you. If you have any thoughts on what Nancy just described about the next steps, Ukraine and Russia, please offer them.
Well, I think there's a pattern developing here, and that is that President Zelensky is negotiating seriously. He's taking steps towards peace, and President Putin appears to think he doesn't need a peace agreement or a ceasefire because he can win on the battlefield. So I'd be very surprised if Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were successful in convincing President Putin to, turn around and support this. Not to take away from the U.S. effort. It's good that they're in Moscow talking to the Russians. But Putin has been at every turn here. He's had many opportunities to bite at the apple. He's never produced a single step towards peace. I'd be surprised if he did it now.
Nick, I said on this program last night that there are no details about this Greenland framework, but there are a lot of hurt feelings and deep, deep bruises in Europe, deeper than ever before. Was I right about that?
Major, I think it's the single most difficult crisis that NATO has had in many decades because we've never had an American president or any leader threaten an attack on another NATO country. And you really can't take that back. It's good that President Trump backed away from that yesterday. It's good he backed down on the tariffs, but he's unpredictable in European eyes. They worry that he might come back with, these kinds of tactics in the future. And if there's going to be a deal, it's going to have to be a deal that respects Greenland and Denmark and their sovereignty in their own country. I actually think, Major, that the deal that seems to be materializing, that the United States would establish new missile defense bases in Greenland, that NATO would establish a major Arctic shield effort in the Arctic, and that we would keep Russia and China out of rare earth mineral development, that has the makings of a very positive deal. But we have to be respectful to Denmark and Greenland and show them that respect. And the president, while he backed down yesterday, he was caustic, extraordinarily critical of the European leaders by name. He made aspersions against the entire continent that it was a failing place. Not the best way to win friends and influence people inside the NATO alliance.
Nick, you know this much better than I do. Sometimes in diplomacy, you have to push doors that are closed open. But sometimes you have to know when to walk through a door that's already open. The Greenland door was already open.
It was. We have a 1951 agreement that allows the United States to construct bases and operate them on our own. We might be able to renegotiate that, even to make that more explicit. I think the door is open, Major. And this kind of a deal that the New York Times has just reported in the last couple of hours, I think it was available a year ago. It was available 6 months ago. The president didn't have to act like Tony Soprano. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, he said last week. That's demeaning to democratic governments, especially major governments like Denmark. They had the highest per capita losses of any troop contributing country in Afghanistan, and they were there with us for 20 years. So they're feeling that we're showing zero respect for them. And here's a time I hope the president will be more diplomatic. I know that's a lot to ask, but that's what's required right now of the United States.
Nick, I want to ask you about Syria. It's not something that's uppermost on the minds of America, but a lot of things have been going on in the last 2 weeks there. The Wall Street Journal is reporting the U.S. is considering pulling all military forces out. There are 2 very large prisons there that hold a lot of ISIS bad actors. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said today that Iraq may hold some of those prisoners. What is going on there, and what U.S. interests are hanging fire right now?
We've had troops in Syria, a small number, but important, for the last 10, 15 years because of ISIS. ISIS, unfortunately, is still alive and still creating mayhem and evil in the Middle East. And so I hope in making this decision that the administration really does have ironclad commitments from both the new Syrian government and from the Iraqi government that they will essentially replace those troops and be effective in countering ISIS. It's hard to know what the details are because we haven't seen them, but I think at a minimum, that should be the case. It is also true, Major, that in 2017-18, in his first year in office, President Trump tried to convince his team that we should withdraw those troops. And I know that the Pentagon under Secretary Jim Mattis and others argue that the troops should remain. So it may be the U.S. wanting to reduce our footprint around the world, but we all remember what ISIS did in killing the hostages, including American citizens. So we better have a replacement regime in place that can be effective.
Ironclad agreements, that's always hard to achieve in many places, particularly in the Middle East. Nick Burns, always a pleasure, sir. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Major.